Come, let us recite from the sayings of the Buddha and then meditate like a Jedi. Oh, that's the wrong button. Let's try button 7. That'll do it. At the end of the way, the master finds freedom. From the tyranny of desire and sorrow, a freedom that is vast. Those who awaken never rest in one place. Like swans, they rise and leave the lake. On the air, these wakened rise. I'm going to add a vowel here because it just works better that way in English. On the air, these awakened arise and fly an invisible course, neither gathering nor storing. Their food is knowledge. They live upon emptiness. They have seen how to break free. Such is their purity that masters, like birds, spontaneously live as if rising on the limitless air and flying an invisible course. The masters wish for nothing. Their food is knowledge. They live upon emptiness. They have broken free. They are the charioteers who have tamed the horses of pride and the senses. Even the gods admire them. Yielding like the earth, joyous and clear like a lake, still as the stone at the door. They are free from the tyranny of life and death. Their thoughts are still, their words are still, their work is stillness. They see their freedom and are free. The masters surrender their beliefs. They see beyond the end and the beginning. They cut all ties, they transcend all desires, they transcend all temptations, and they prevail. And wherever these masters live, in the city or the country, in the valley or in the hills, there is great joy. Even in the empty forest, they find joy, because they have transcended the tyranny of all desires. Having completed the opening lesson, let us now shift gears. It is Ahsoka Tano Thursday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After about 30 seconds of housekeeping, this is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of impermanence, the first fold of the Buddha's eightfold path. Now, there is no need to visualize, there is no need to believe. All we got to do is play with ideas passively, effortlessly. The easiest and ironically most efficient way is as follows. For the next 3 or 4 breaths, as we breathe in, we could silently and mentally recite the noun lot. And we could, during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the verb change. And thus bring our experience of the circumstantial into the path of impermanence. Let us bring our experience of the physical into the path of impermanence by silently and mentally reciting the noun form as we inhale, and silently and mentally reciting the verb change as we exhale. Let us bring our experience of the interpersonal into the path of impermanence by silently and mentally reciting the noun feels as we inhale and the verb change as we exhale. Let us bring our experience of the mental into the path of impermanence by silently and mentally reciting the noun mind as we breathe in and the verb change as we breathe out. Now it's time to prepare for mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness is not active concentration, nor meditation active analysis. The only way to practice those two actions is in dependence upon our dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex. When we overwork that region and the front of our brain, we begin presenting with symptoms of depression and even trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. Nobody wants that. Fortunately, neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of the central nervous system. Now things get interesting. Consider this. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, described by some as our sympathetic nervous system. It evolved to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. It evolved to help us to notice mind's antics of perception, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. And so instead of actively indulging our controlling tendencies to pick and choose, we're vulnerable to whatever comes up, whether it is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. But what are we to do with that which we notice? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the bottom bit and the top bit of our spinal cord, kind of like bookends on a shelf. These bad boys are known as the parasympathetic nervous system, and they have evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. We have evolved to think symbolically, and therefore it should come as little surprise that figures of speech are found upon every populated continent where humans gather. Consider this. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand. All mindfulness is watching mind's antics. All meditation is relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature, mind's empty nature. The most efficient way to practice this, let me rephrase this. Having decided not to actively compete against our own autonomic nervous system, we are faced with the question, what is the easiest and most effective way for us to passively cooperate with it? And the answer is simple. Every time we feel our chest swell with air, silently and mentally we can recite the verb watch. Every time we feel our chest sink with exhalation, silently and mentally we could recite the verb rest. For the remainder of this evening's live stream, let us sit and breathe and watch and rest. But don't worry, you're not alone. This is not some pre-recorded message. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, you do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. And for I tend to check for questions sporadically. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including humans, including meditation teachers. These 90% tend to confuse people about birthlessness, deathlessness, selflessness, and the like. Think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever birth or death or self we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable, could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as if they were birthless, deathless, and selfless. And so we see many of the so-called confusing things about Buddhism or just misunderstood figures of speech used as a cudgel by elitists to bend you to their will. Elitists would try to coerce us with fear. However, the fifth enlightenment factor is tranquility. Clearly, fear and tranquility are antithetical. Trying to use fear as a tool of enlightenment is like trying to make love in the name of virginity. It might be a fun way to spend an afternoon, but it's not going to get us any closer to our stated goal. The Christian Bible teaches that love and fear are antithetical. 50% of the Eightfold Path pertains to love. 0% of the Eightfold Path pertains to fear or coercion or karma or punishment or reward. Punishment and reward are ways of indulging the two fundamental dualities of suffering, pushing and pulling, hope and fear, dread and desire. But to simply notice and relax and love transcends duality. Whenever we see of movement, be it recreational, vocational, economic, spiritual. We see it goes through two stages, a proto stage and an, what's the word begins with an I? Institutional stage. We see that in every formal spiritual movement. We see that in Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism. We see that in Judaism, Christianity, Islam. We see that around the world. And it just goes down to the way the human brain is wired. The more we indulge our controlling tendencies, the more we overuse the front of our brain, the more we trigger our amygdala, the more cranky and controlling we are. The more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, the more peaceful and loving we are. Consider, if you will, the idea of vows. In the Eightfold Path, there is no mention of vows. There is mention of love. And so, mindfulness meditation fuel our love. Mindfulness meditation and love can guide our choices and our utterances and our deeds. The great irony is the moment we ask, am I in the flow? Then no, we're not in the flow. Does being in the flow mean that we'll receive the approval of everyone all the time? No. No, it doesn't. If people have to be told not to harm others, then that doesn't speak well of the love generated by their practice of mindfulness and meditation. Whether the Buddha was real or merely archetypical, in his life story, we see an individual forsaking both extremes, both hedonism and asceticism, to find the middle way. And yet, asceticism relentlessly weasels its way back in to the practice. There are people who teach that the Buddha said that the fully ordained can only eat one meal a day, brunch, if you will. But the ancient texts also mention three exceptions: if they're sick, or if they're laboring, or if they're traveling, which is a form of exertion. And yet there are people indoctrinated into rigid institutional Buddhism who on one hand would reach for an ancient scripture and say, look, you can only have one meal a day, but then forsake that same scripture that explains the three exceptions. Not everyone is going to be rigid and fearful and superstitious and controlling and elitist and cryptic, competitive and cruel. There will be those who are luminaries in the dark sky. One such luminary lived in China, and he is said to have taught to his students, his monastic students, and of course I say this in a Jewish accent, when you're hungry, eat. When you are weary, rest. What he was inferring is, rather than rigidly exhaust ourselves with austerities, may our peace and our love guide our choices and our utterances and our deeds. Guided by kindness, we have no desire to harm anybody ever. We might have the impulse, but we don't act on it. Let's continue. Keeping rules does not ensure that we are training our heart to be kind. Sometimes it does the opposite. Sometimes the rigidity of perfectionism makes us cruel and cranky. While staying in a Laotian monastery, I got in trouble for leaving the monastery, walking down the street, and sitting in a park under a tree to meditate. For I hadn't asked anybody's permission. Those who are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel will turn a monastery or a nunnery or a vihara, if you prefer Pali, into a prison. There will always be fools who promote petty one-upsmanship and build themselves up by tearing others down. When people behave in this way, they're letting you know you should seek instruction somewhere else. I've stayed in monasteries and seen them treat the novices in abusive ways. In ways that did not promote joy or peace, although joy and peace are the fourth and fifth enlightenment factors. Cruelty is antithetical to anything the Buddha taught. Now, you and I can go for a walk around the block And as we do, we might happen upon a steaming pile of doggy do. Simply producing a 3x5 card and writing the words chocolate on it and gingerly placing it upon the doggy do does not change the doggy do. Similarly, just because people take teachings that are yang, that promote being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, and say they're ancient and say they're from the Buddha, doesn't mean they are. Whether the Buddha was real or imagined, the question of whether something is productive, whether something is helpful, it's not its reputation or its age or its country of origin. It's simply the effects a teaching produces when we apply it. If a teaching helps us to be effortlessly be flexible, loving, laid back, rational, lucid, cooperative, kind, you've probably stumbled onto something helpful. It doesn't matter where that teaching's from. I've had the exciting opportunity to encounter cultists of every ilk. Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, you name it. They all pretty much the same. They decide someone can only be saved in their organization. And based on that conclusion, they seek evidence to support it, regardless of how many logical fallacies they step in. These people's problem is not that they have failed to understand. They've already made their minds up. There's always going to be people who are determined to find our flaws, whether they are there or not. They're easy to find. Search not for the 90% who are cruel or foolish. Search for the 10% who are loving and wise. If you, like me, are prone to arthritis, I encourage you to gently adjust your legs about every 15 minutes or so. What an excellent test of love. When wrong, and we will be wronged, do we seek the punishment of those who have wronged us, or the evolution of those who have wronged us, that they might stop hurting people and start doing good? No, I'm not talking about emotions, which are fleeting and they come and they go, but our intentions. For those who want vengeance, then karma is a really awesome thing, because eventually, those people will be punished horribly. But that desire for justice and vengeance speaks poorly of our peace and our love. Peace and love do not say that harm does not exist. We sweat when we're hot, we shiver when we're cold, we bleed when we're cut, we weep when we're insulted. To paraphrase Merchant of Venice. Teachings of karma and retribution do not harmonize with the Eightfold Path. They're trappings of institutional Buddhism. If we try to ease our pain, our emotional pain, by anticipating the glorious punishment awaiting those who have harmed us, that will not heal us. That will twist us. Like the concoction drunk by Dr. Juggle. What do we do then with grossly unjust circumstances? When we start with ourselves, we practice honesty with what we feel, with the fear and the anger and the sorrow that we feel. We notice what we feel as we breathe in. We relax into what we feel as we breathe out. Know that does not make those painful things go away, but it helps us to process them. The more we watch and rest in harmony with our breathing, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds will flow from a place of love's centered spontaneity. Not to make us indifferent, but to help us to protect others wisely. Sometimes to protect another, there is no safe way to do it. Sometimes a horrible price is paid to protect others from the wrongdoings of others. Consider a hiker coming to the assistance of a woman being attacked by a bear. In a worst case scenario, he dies in the process, buying her time to run from the bear. Sometimes in my country right now, there are bands of villains brutalizing men, women, and children, the aged, the young, and the infirm. And there could be times when one flowing from centered spontaneity will use themselves as a human shield so that others can at least beat a retreat. These are some scary, scary times here in the United Corporations of America. It is my hope that this practice of mindfulness and meditation will help each of us to be our best selves, our most resourceful selves, our most wise selves. when the villains come to town. History shows us that the founding fathers of the country in which I live did not win their independence by holding hands and singing Kumbaya. They used violence. The cops and the military are state-sanctioned violence. Sometimes, in order to protect others, we have to be willing for ourselves to be harmed, or imprisoned, or vilified, or shot. These are difficult times. The wisdom and the peace and the love we need is accessed through mindfulness and meditation. We have to be careful in times like this, for weaselly men and women will do their best to imprison those who say cruelty and competition must be replaced with kindness and cooperation. And even though the founding fathers gave us an amendment that says that citizens can protect themselves from the rise of tyranny, there are others with big guns and small brains who will redefine the definitions used in the Constitution and the dictionary to paint the loving and the wise and the heroic as the villainous and the cruel. Now more than ever, we need wisdom and love and peace. Join me as we meditate. Let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of loving kindness. Begin with bringing mind into the path of love, which is bringing the mental into the path of love, which is the second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. So it's very, very simple. We don't coerce ourselves. We just we don't visualize. All we're doing is playing with words in harmony with our breathing in a way to gently stimulate the neural pathways that support empathy. Very easy. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite joy. During our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite all, inferring that we're wishing great joy for all minds of all beings. As we bring the let's try this again. We could lovingly wish that each being's experience of the interpersonal was defined by peace. By silently and mentally reciting the word peace during each inhalation and the word all during each exhalation. By the way, bringing the interpersonal into the path of love is the third fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Bringing the physical into the path of love is the fourth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. We can silently and mentally infer the loving wish that all bodies of all beings experience great health by silently and mentally reciting the word health as we inhale and the word all as we exhale. The fifth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is the bringing of the circumstantial into the path of love. We infer our loving wish that all circumstances of all beings be safe by silently and mentally reciting the word safe as we inhale and the word all as we exhale. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning recitation as well as effortless meditation. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.